All right, guys, in today's video, we have some more PlayStation 5 news and info to go over and discuss. If you could do me a big favor before we get into it, hit the like button to help the video out and show your support. Hit the subscribe button if you're new and hit the bell notification icon as well. But we have a lot of different stories to go over here today. They're all very good, and I think you guys are going to enjoy them. So we're going to start here with what Phil Spencer had to say about the DualSense controller, which I found pretty interesting. I know I'm a little bit late to this one, but considering how awesome I think the DualSense is, I certainly want to hear what Phil Spencer has to say, considering he is the head of Xbox. It says here, speaking with The Verge, Phil Spencer seems to be a fan of the new controller. He said he applauds what Sony did with the DualSense and thinks that everyone in the industry can take bits and pieces from each other, even calling back to the Wii having a major impact on Microsoft with their Kinect project. And so this is exactly what Phil said. I applaud what they did with the controller, not actually for, well, I shouldn't say not for the specifics of the controller, but more than just the specifics of the controller, he said, I think for all of us in the industry, we should learn from each other and the innovation that we all push on, whether it's distribution of business models like Game Pass or controller tech, or the Wii back in the day, which clearly had an impact on us when we went off and did Kinect and Sony did the move. So, you know, this isn't the most revealing comment, but one of the things he is making clear here is, one, he likes the DualSense, which is good because, I mean, there's really not much to not like about the DualSense, but he does kind of talk about how all of these companies kind of take from one another. And I don't want to say that this is him hinting that they're going to try to implement this into the Xbox controllers in the future, but you know, I think it would be a good idea. I don't think anybody would be against that. Anybody who's used the DualSense, I think we'd agree that it's the future of controllers. It really is. It's not to say that you're going to have to use the haptics or the, you know, triggers every single time you're playing. That's not necessarily the case. But when you are really trying to get immersed into a game, the DualSense really adds that extra layer. So that's what Phil had to say about it. He seems to really like the controller, and so hopefully he'll, you know, kind of go over to the, you know, Xbox team and say, look, can we get this implemented into our Xbox controller? So yeah, moving right along here, I want to talk about an interesting PlayStation leak that came out. Now, this is not your traditional type of leak. It's not like there's a big game that has been leaked or anything like that. This is more along the lines of something that is going, if it's not going to, it already is having big implications on the future of the PlayStation 5, more specifically, future PlayStation 5 games from Sony. There was actually a document that was leaked or obtained that honestly, we weren't supposed to be able to see, but something it revealed, and this was an internal document from Sony, is that single-player games are more live than ever before. And this is very important to pay attention to, because if you're wondering why Sony is doubling or tripling down on single-player experiences on the PS5, this is why. It's because their research has found that more players on PlayStation are playing offline and playing single-player games than they are playing online, which is incredibly important because a lot of people love the single player experience. In fact, I'd say that a lot of people go to PlayStation specifically for those big single player experiences. You don't really get them all too often. And what's interesting about this as well is there's actually, on the other side of the coin, maybe some gamers who are a little bit upset because they've been asking, when is Sony going to start making more multiplayer titles? Is that something they're going to continue to pursue? They really haven't been doing anything in that space significantly. And I think they are. They're obviously not going to completely abandon multiplayer titles. That would just be a foolish thing for them to do. They're working on The Last of Us Factions mode, which it's looking more and more likely that's going to be a standalone game. We know that Guerrilla Games has a second team that's either working on a new Killzone title or possibly a SOCOM reboot. If not that, something multiplayer related in the Horizon universe. And I'm sure they have other projects going on in the background that have some type of multiplayer. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that this was something that was leaked where, you know, according to Sony's data, people are loving single player games. It says, quote, single player is thriving. So for anybody who's maybe wondering what the future of PlayStation 5 games are going to look like, is Sony going to start moving away from single player titles? Are they going to start moving over to multiplayer? That's not what's going to happen. They're going to continue to double down and triple down on single player, but I don't think that means they're going to completely abandon multiplayer either. That, again, just wouldn't be a smart thing for them to do. But I also want to let you know that one of the things that was also discussed in this leaked document has to do with the reasoning why Sony decided to create the card system for the PS5. And the number one reason is, once again, single player games, where they were trying to figure out, what is preventing gamers, or most gamers, from, completing their single player games? What makes them kind of like walk away from it and then just kind of never play it again? And it turns out that the biggest reason, apparently, is people end up kind of forgetting like what they were doing, or they feel overwhelmed by the game because they have no idea how long it's going to take them to complete something. And so this is exactly why Sony created the card system. They wanted to make it as easy as possible for people who are like busy and just can't sit down for hours at a time to really, get completely immersed into a game. If they can only play like once or twice a week, it can be very easy to forget what you were doing, and it can be overwhelming, especially with how massive some of these games can be and how much content is packed into them. So that's the reason why they came up with these cards, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So moving along from that, we are talking about Sony's secret San Diego studio. And this is an interesting story because there was a lot of talk that apparently Sony had actually shut down the studio behind the scenes, but I can confirm to you that that's not what happened. The studio was not shut down. It's still, alive, and I'm assuming thriving. It's just that a couple of developers recently left it, and because of that, people started to speculate that, there's big trouble and the studio is going to end up being closed if it's not already. But it says here, John Batista, a former developer at Sony's not so secret anymore San Diego studio, found himself in bit of a quagmire when a 2-week-old tweet announcing his departure started making the rounds online. We're not sure why the tweet caught as much attention as it did, but an article on Push Square suggests that 2 recent resignations, including Batista's, means that the studio may be no more. Well, that's not the case. According to Batista himself, following up on his tweet from November 12th, the developer clarified that he made the decision to move on due to his personal circumstances, and that Sony San Diego still exists and its project is still in development as far as he's aware. And so if you read over these tweets, the first one says, last day at Sony San Diego, it was a crazy ride and an amazing company, but things just didn't work out this time. That being said, I'm proud of what we were able to achieve, given the craziness we went through. More news coming soon. Bonus, I get to work on my YouTube series again. And then his follow-up tweet says, just to clarify, I made the decision to move on due to my own personal circumstances. The studio is still there and the project is still ongoing. Now, this is really interesting stuff here because this is the closest thing to official confirmation of this studio actually existing and a secret project in the works. Now, I mean, look, there were always job listings, so that in and of itself already confirmed it, but Sony hasn't officially talked about the studio yet. A lot of people are probably wondering why, and this is why, because when you're talking about like cultivating a studio, you don't really want to announce it unless you have to. Like, the reason why Microsoft announced the initiative is because they kind of had to. Like, they needed to show that they have a bigger commitment to first party. Sony doesn't have to announce studios that they're cultivating from the ground up or building because they already have a lot of studios. They already have a lot of projects. They probably want to wait until this team can kind of show them something, right? Like, they don't want to announce something without being able to show a game. If they're going to announce a new major AAA project from Sony San Diego or their secret team, they want to be able to show that project alongside of it. So I just wanted to go over this because I saw a lot of people, kind of panicking a little bit, thinking that the studio shut down, and that's not the case. He's confirming that as far as he's aware, the studio is still, it's still around. They're still working on something. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad news. But to close out this video, I do want to let you guys know that we have a little bit of an update on PlayStation 5 sales and how well it's doing. Apparently, the PS5 broke the record in the UK to have the biggest console launch ever. We already know that Sony announced that the PS5 was the biggest console launch for them. We know that it's the biggest console launch in general, but we have some numbers here to go off of. Apparently, the PS5 has far exceeded the PlayStation 4 in the UK. Now, the PlayStation 4 back in 2013 did 250,000 units in its first 48 hours, and the PS5 apparently far surpassed that. So it's probably double that, maybe even triple. And it apparently really did significantly better than the Xbox Series X and S in the region, because the Series X and S combined sold about 155,000 units on its first day. So no surprise there, the PS5 taking the lead. The PS5 seems to be off to an incredibly strong start. It's really interesting to me that Sony has not announced any official sales data yet. It's kind of unlike them, considering they announced sales data within the first like 24 hours of the PS4 being out. So I'm not really sure why they're waiting. Maybe they're waiting to hit a certain milestone, but I'm sure we're going to be getting some sales data from Sony at some point in the future, unless they maybe decide to go the Microsoft route, which I don't think would make sense because they're clearly doing really well, but we'll have to wait and see. But either way, the PS5 is doing really well. I know some people are still feeling pretty bad because it's still really hard to get your hands on one if you haven't already, but hang in there. The wait will be worth it. So that does it for the video, guys. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Again, leave it a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.